Lucas Miller thought it was just a work dinner. His billionaire boss told him there would be senior executives attending tonight, and he couldn't miss it. But when the door opened, Lucas froze. No colleagues, just her parents sitting there waiting, the dining table set like a family introduction. Before he could stand up and leave, she gripped his hand tight under the table and smiled. "This is my boyfriend." And from that moment, Lucas knew he had just walked into a trap with no way out. Or maybe an opportunity? Lucas Miller had learned early in his career that nothing in Victoria Hale's world happened by accident. Every meeting had a purpose. Every dinner had an agenda. So when she mentioned the dinner that Thursday afternoon, standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office, he knew better than to assume it was casual. "There will be senior executives tonight," Victoria said without turning around. "I need you there. 7 o'clock. The address is already in your calendar." Lucas glanced at his phone. The location was a residential address, not a restaurant. He hesitated, thinking about his daughter waiting at home. Emma was only 6 years old, and Thursday nights were when they usually made pizza together. "I'll be there," Lucas said, already mentally rearranging his evening. He would call Mrs. Patterson next door to watch Emma. It would cost him money he hadn't budgeted for, but refusing Victoria was not an option he could afford. Not as a single father with bills that never stopped coming. Victoria turned then, her eyes meeting his for just a moment. There was something different in her expression, something he couldn't quite read. She nodded once, and Lucas left her office with the uncomfortable feeling that he had just agreed to something he didn't fully understand. He had been her executive secretary for almost 3 years now, long enough to anticipate her needs before she voiced them. Victoria Hale had built her technology company from nothing, turning a single software patent into an empire worth billions by the time she was 32. She was brilliant and ruthless, and completely dedicated to her work. At 6:30, Lucas drove to the address Victoria had given him. The neighborhood surprised him. These were old money homes, the kind with gates and circular driveways. He rang the doorbell and waited, straightening his tie and running through possible scenarios in his mind. The door opened, and Victoria stood there. But she looked different. She was wearing a soft cream sweater instead of her usual sharp business attire, and her hair was down. For a moment, Lucas almost didn't recognize her. That uncertainty made him nervous. "Come in," Victoria said, and there was something in her voice that made Lucas's instincts scream a warning. But he stepped inside anyway. The house was beautiful in an understated way. He followed Victoria down a hallway toward the dining room, his confusion growing with every step. Then they entered the dining room, and Lucas understood. There were no executives. There never had been. Sitting at the elegantly set table were 2 people he recognized instantly from the photos on Victoria's desk, her parents. Lucas stopped walking. This was a family dinner. Victoria had lied to him. He turned to look at Victoria, ready to excuse himself, ready to walk back out that door. But before he could speak, Victoria's hand shot out under the table and gripped his wrist. "Mom, Dad," Victoria said, her voice steady in a way that Lucas knew meant she was forcing it to be steady. "This is my boyfriend, Lucas Miller." The room went very still. Lucas felt his heart hammering against his ribs. Her father stood up slowly, extending his hand. "Robert Hale, it's good to finally meet you. Victoria has been very secretive about her personal life." Lucas shook his hand automatically, his mind still racing. Every instinct told him to tell the truth right now, to apologize and leave. But something stopped him. Maybe it was the fear in Victoria's eyes. Maybe it was the memory of all the times she had trusted him with impossible tasks, and he had delivered. "It's nice to meet you, sir," Lucas heard himself say. "Victoria talks about you both often." Victoria's mother, Margaret, smiled at him. "Please, sit down." "We're so glad Victoria finally decided to introduce us." Lucas sat because he didn't know what else to do. Victoria released his wrist, but moved her hand to rest on his knee under the table, a warning and a reminder. Dinner was served. The food looked expensive, but Lucas barely tasted it. He was too busy navigating the minefield of conversation that Robert and Margaret laid out before him. They asked about his work, and Lucas had to be vague. They asked about his family, and he told them about Emma. Margaret's expression tightened slightly. "A daughter. How old?" Lucas met her eyes steadily. "6. Her name is Emma. She's in 1st grade. Robert set down his fork. "And her mother?" Lucas kept his voice even. "Not in the picture. It's just the two of us." There was a moment of silence that felt like judgment, but Victoria spoke before he could stand up. "Emma is wonderful. She's smart and kind, and Lucas is an incredible father. I've never met anyone more dedicated to their child." Lucas stared at her. Victoria had never met Emma. The dinner continued. Robert asked about Lucas's career plans. Margaret asked about his family background, his education, his goals. Lucas answered as honestly as he could without revealing the truth. Everything about him screamed that he didn't belong in this world of wealth and privilege. When dessert finally came and went, Robert stood and suggested the men have a drink in his study. Lucas followed him down another hallway into a room lined with books and smelling of old whiskey. Robert poured 2 glasses and handed one to Lucas. "I'll be direct," Robert said. "My daughter is an extraordinary woman. The man in her life needs to understand the responsibility that comes with that." Lucas took a sip of the whiskey and let it burn down his throat. He knew what this was, the assessment of whether he was worthy or just after her money. "You're right," Lucas said quietly. "I'm not from this world. I don't have the education or the background or the money. But I care about Victoria. That's not something I can prove to you with a resume or a bank statement. It's just the truth." It was the truth, Lucas realized as he said it. He did care about Victoria. He had seen her work herself to exhaustion. He had seen the loneliness that lived behind her success. Robert studied him for a long moment, then nodded once. "We'll see." The goodbyes were polite. Margaret told Victoria to bring Lucas by more often. Robert shook Lucas's hand again, and then Victoria was walking Lucas to the door, and they were finally alone. "I'm sorry," Victoria said the moment the door closed. "I know that was unfair. I know I should have told you the truth." Lucas turned to face her fully. "What the hell was that, Victoria? You lied to me. You made me lie to your parents." "I know." She wrapped her arms around herself. "They've been setting me up on dates, blind dates with men they think are suitable. They won't stop. So I thought if I just showed up with someone, anyone, they would finally back off." Lucas ran a hand through his hair. "So you used me." Victoria met his eyes. "Yes. I used you because you're the only person I trust not to make it weird. You're professional. You're discreet. And I promise this is the last time. One dinner. That's all." Lucas looked at her standing there, her guard finally down, and he felt his anger start to fade. "One dinner," he said finally, "and we never speak of this again." Relief washed over Victoria's face. "Thank you." Lucas drove home through the dark streets. When he got back to his apartment, Mrs. Patterson was reading on the couch, and Emma was asleep. He paid her, thanked her, and locked the door. Then he stood in Emma's doorway and watched his daughter sleep. He had just lied to billionaires about being their daughter's boyfriend. It was absurd and reckless and completely unlike him. But it was done now. One dinner. That's what Victoria had promised. One dinner, and then everything would go back to normal. Lucas didn't know yet that promises like that were impossible to keep. When Monday morning came, Lucas walked into Victoria's office expecting everything to return to normal. But Victoria was standing by her desk with her phone in her hand, and the expression on her face told Lucas that nothing was over. "My mother wants to have dinner again this Friday," Victoria said without preamble. "She's invited us to their country club. There will be other members there." Lucas set the coffee down harder than he meant to. "No. You said one dinner. That was the deal." "I know what I said." Victoria moved around the desk, looking uncertain for the first time since he had known her. "But they loved you. My mother has already told half her friends that I'm seeing someone. If I suddenly tell them we broke up, they'll go right back to setting me up with every eligible bachelor." Lucas laughed, but there was no humor in it. "That's not my problem, Victoria." Victoria's voice dropped lower, more urgent. "You don't know them. My mother wants to meet Emma. If I can give them a few more months of believing this is real, maybe they'll finally accept that I get to choose my own life. You want me to drag my daughter into this?" Lucas walked to the window. 43 floors down, people were living normal lives. "Why don't you just tell them the truth? Tell them you're not interested in getting married right now." "I've tried." There was something broken in Victoria's voice. "I've been trying for years, but they don't hear me. Every conversation becomes a negotiation. Every holiday becomes an interrogation. I'm tired, Lucas. I'm so tired of fighting that battle." Lucas saw it then, the weight she carried. She was trapped in a different kind of prison, one made of expectations and family obligation. He understood that feeling better than he wanted to admit. "How long?" he asked finally. Victoria's expression shifted, hope creeping in. "A few months, maybe 6, long enough for them to believe it's real. Then we can stage a mutual breakup, and I'll increase your salary, 30% more than you're making now." The number hit Lucas like a physical blow. 30% more meant he could move Emma to a better school. It meant breathing room and a life that had been suffocating him for years. Victoria knew exactly what she was offering. "This is wrong," Lucas said, but his voice had lost its certainty. Victoria stepped closer. "I know, but I'm asking anyway." "Please." Lucas thought about Emma, about the future he wanted to give her. "Okay, but we set ground rules, clear boundaries, and the moment it threatens Emma's well-being, I'm out." They spent the next hour hammering out the details. Lucas would attend family dinners and occasional social events. Victoria would keep their arrangements strictly between them. They would maintain their professional relationship at work. It was a contract, except the product being sold was the illusion of love. Friday came. The country club was exactly what Lucas expected. Manicured lawns, white columns, expensive cars. Victoria was waiting for him at the entrance, wearing a navy dress. "Remember," she said quietly, "we've been dating for 3 months. Just follow my lead." Robert and Margaret were at a table with 2 other couples. Victoria touched his arm lightly as they approached, a gesture of casual intimacy. The introductions were smooth. The conversation flowed around him, talk of vacation homes and charity galas. Lucas contributed when spoken to, but mostly listened. Margaret leaned toward him during the main course. "Victoria tells me your daughter is 6. I'd love to meet her sometime. Perhaps brunch together." Lucas felt Victoria's foot press against his under the table. "I'd like that," he said. "Emma would enjoy that." The lies came easily. He talked about taking Emma to the park, how Victoria had suggested which playground had the best equipment. He mentioned movie nights. None of it was true, but it sounded true. Across the table, Victoria played her part perfectly. She laughed at his stories. She touched his hand. She looked at him with apparent affection. The weeks that followed fell into a strange rhythm. Lucas would manage Victoria's schedule at work with the same efficiency. But then Friday would come, and he would put on the mask of boyfriend. Each event required him to build on the lie, to remember details of a relationship that didn't exist. And somewhere in all that learning, something shifted. The pretense started to feel less like acting and more like habit. When Victoria laughed at something he said, he found himself wanting to make her laugh again. When she talked about her company, her eyes lighting up, he found himself genuinely interested. It was dangerous. Lucas knew it was dangerous. The real turning point came on a Sunday afternoon in early October. Margaret had insisted on brunch with Emma. Lucas had prepared Emma carefully, explaining that Miss Hale from his work wanted to meet her. Emma had been so excited that Lucas had to buy her a new dress. They met at a restaurant downtown. Emma held Lucas's hand tightly as they walked in, nervous despite her excitement. Victoria was already there with her parents, and when she saw Emma, something in her expression softened. She knelt down to Emma's level. "You must be Emma," Victoria said, her voice gentler than Lucas knew it could be. "I've heard so much about you. Your dad talks about you all the time." Emma shook Victoria's hand solemnly. "He talks about you too. He says you're very smart." Victoria glanced up at Lucas with an expression he couldn't quite read. Then she smiled at Emma. "Want to know a secret? The best part of working hard is when you get to take a break and have brunch with interesting people. And I think you might be the most interesting person here." Emma giggled, and just like that, she was won over. Lucas watched his daughter charm Victoria's parents with stories about first grade and her science project about butterflies. But it was watching Victoria with Emma that did something to Lucas's carefully constructed walls. Victoria asked Emma questions and listened to the answers like they mattered. She didn't talk down to her or patronize her. When Emma spilled juice on the tablecloth, Victoria just handed her a napkin and distracted Margaret before she could make it a big deal. She was natural with Emma in a way that surprised Lucas. After brunch, they walked through the nearby park. Emma ran ahead to look at the ducks, and Lucas found himself walking beside Victoria in comfortable silence. The October air was cool. For a moment, it almost felt real, like they were actually a couple, taking Emma to the park on a Sunday afternoon. "She's wonderful," Victoria said quietly. "You've done an incredible job with her." Lucas looked at her. "Thanks. It's not always easy, but she makes it worth it." Victoria turned to look at him, and there was something in her eyes that made Lucas's breath catch. "The way your whole face changes when you mention her. It's one of my favorite things about you." Lucas didn't know what to say. The words hung between them, too honest for the lie they were living. He was saved from responding by Emma running back to them, breathless and excited about a particularly large duck she had named George. That night, after he had put Emma to bed, Lucas let himself acknowledge the truth he had been avoiding. He was developing feelings for Victoria Hale. Real feelings, not the ones he was supposed to be pretending to have. You couldn't spend that much time with someone without starting to care. You couldn't see someone be gentle with your daughter and not feel something shift. The worst part was knowing it was impossible. Victoria was his boss. She was a billionaire. Their entire relationship was built on a lie. She had never wanted to be his girlfriend. She wanted a shield against her parents' expectations, and he was convenient. That was all. Lucas's phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. It was late, past 11. The message was simple. "Thank you for today. Emma is lucky to have you. So am I." He stared at the words for a long time, trying to decode what they meant. Did she feel it too? This dangerous thing growing between them. Lucas didn't respond. He turned off his phone and went to bed, but sleep didn't come easily. He thought about 6 months of this pretense and how much harder it was going to get. In another part of the city, Victoria stood in her penthouse and wondered the same things. She thought about how easy it was becoming to forget this was all pretend, and how dangerous that forgetting was. Neither of them knew that someone was watching. Someone who had noticed the pattern the way her assistant showed up at company events on her arm. Someone who knew that Lucas Miller was just a secretary, not the kind of man a billionaire like Victoria Hale would actually date. The exposure was coming. But for now, they each believed they could control this thing between them. They were both wrong about that. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning in late October. Lucas was at his desk when his phone buzzed. The sender was Jennifer Costa from the legal department. The subject line read, "Confidential matter requiring immediate attention." Lucas opened it with a sense of dread. He was being asked to come to legal immediately. He took the elevator down 3 floors, his heart hammering. Jennifer Costa met him at the entrance, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes. "Mr. Miller, thank you for coming down. Please, have a seat." Lucas sat. Jennifer opened a folder on the table. Inside were printouts of photos. Lucas at the country club with Victoria. Lucas and Victoria at the art gallery. Lucas, Victoria, and Emma at brunch. "These were brought to our attention by someone in the company," Jennifer said. They were concerned about a potential conflict of interest. You're listed as Victoria Hale's executive secretary, yet you appear to be in a romantic relationship with her. That presents problems from an HR perspective. Lucas felt his mouth go dry. "Who brought these to you?" Jennifer leaned back. "I'm not at liberty to say. What I need from you is clarity about the nature of your relationship with Ms. Hale. Is it romantic? Is it professional? Because it can't be both." This was it. The moment Lucas could tell the truth. But even as the words formed in his mind, he realized he couldn't. Admitting the lie would expose Victoria. It would reveal that she had manipulated a situation, used an employee for personal gain. It would humiliate her. "It's romantic," Lucas heard himself say. "We've been seeing each other for a few months." "It started outside of work. We've kept it professional in the office," Jennifer made a note. "Ms. Hale will need to confirm this. You understand that remaining as her direct report creates complications." 20 minutes later, Jennifer returned with Victoria. Victoria's face was composed, but Lucas could see the tension in her jaw. Jennifer explained the situation again, showing Victoria the photos. "We need you to confirm the nature of your relationship with Mr. Miller." Victoria looked at the photos for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm. "Lucas and I are in a relationship. It began outside of work. I apologize for not disclosing it sooner." Jennifer nodded. "Given the circumstances, Mr. Miller will need to be reassigned to a different department, or his employment will need to be terminated." The words hit Lucas like a punch. Reassigned meant leaving Victoria's office, losing the position he had worked 3 years to earn. Terminated meant losing his job entirely, losing the salary increase, losing the stability that let him provide for Emma. "That seems extreme," Victoria said, an edge to her voice. "Lucas is excellent at his job. Moving him would disrupt operations significantly." Jennifer was unmoved. "Company policy is clear. We can't have romantic relationships between supervisors and direct reports." Victoria stood up abruptly. "Give us a moment." Jennifer looked surprised, but nodded and left. The door clicked shut, leaving Lucas and Victoria alone. "I'm sorry," Victoria said immediately. "I should have been more careful." Lucas shook his head. "Someone was looking for this. They were trying to catch us." He walked to the window. "We're caught. The lie is out there. Your parents are going to find out." "No," Victoria's voice was sharp. "We don't tell them it's fake. We tell them we broke up. The pressure was too much. They'll believe it." Lucas turned to look at her. "And what about my job? I'm about to lose everything because I helped you lie to your parents." "You won't lose everything," Victoria crossed to him. "I'll make sure you're reassigned somewhere good. Same salary, same benefits." Lucas felt something breaking inside him. "You can't protect me from this, Victoria. This is the consequence. We lied, and now we have to deal with what happens." Victoria reached for his hand, then stopped herself. I never meant for you to get hurt. Lucas met her eyes. I know. Jennifer knocked and re-entered. Have you made a decision? Lucas looked at Victoria one more time. He saw the fear in her eyes, the guilt, the desperate hope. He thought about Emma. He thought about the text messages that had become more personal. He thought about standing in the park watching Victoria make his daughter laugh. I'll resign, Lucas said quietly. Effective immediately. It's cleaner that way. Victoria's face went pale. Lucas, no, you don't have to do that. Lucas turned to Jennifer. I'll submit my formal resignation today. I'll work through the end of the week to transition my responsibilities. Lucas left and went back to his desk. He had never quit a job without having another one lined up. The fear was sharp and immediate. He wrote the letter in 3 sentences. Brief, professional. He hit send and felt something in him shut down. Victoria came to his desk an hour later. Come to my office, she said quietly. Lucas followed her inside. She closed the door and turned to face him, and for the first time since he had known her, Victoria Hale looked like she might cry. You can't just quit, she said. You need this job. Emma needs you to have this job. Lucas kept his voice controlled. I'll find another one. I have good references. It'll be fine. Victoria moved closer. Will it? Because it doesn't feel fine. It feels like everything is falling apart and it's my fault. It's both our faults, Lucas said. We made a choice to lie. This is what happens. Victoria was quiet. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. I don't want you to go. Lucas felt something crack in his chest. Victoria, don't. She took another step toward him. I mean it. These last few months, pretending to be with you, it's been the most real thing in my life. And I know that doesn't make sense because it was all fake, but it wasn't. Not for me. Not anymore. Lucas stared at her. What are you saying? Victoria's hands were trembling. I'm saying that somewhere between the first lie and now, I stopped pretending. Watching you with Emma, seeing how patient and devoted you are, it made me realize what I've been missing. When I text you late at night, it's not because I need my secretary. It's because I miss you. Lucas couldn't breathe. Everything he had been trying to keep buried was right there in front of him. He wanted to reach for her, but he couldn't. Not here. Not like this. Your parents, Lucas said. They need to know the truth. Victoria nodded slowly. I'll tell them. Tonight. I'll tell them everything. She took a shaky breath. That we started as a lie. That I asked you to pretend because I was too much of a coward to stand up to them. And that somewhere in the middle, it became real. I'm done lying to them. I'm done lying to you. I'm done lying to myself. Lucas felt the weight settling on his shoulders. What if they don't accept it? What if they think I'm just trying to take advantage of you? Victoria's voice was stronger now. Then I'll make them understand. I'll make them see what I see. That you're real, Lucas. You're the most real person I know. Lucas reached out and took her hand. Her fingers were cold, but they gripped his tightly. I'm scared, he admitted. Victoria met his eyes. Me too. But I'm more scared of losing you without trying. That evening, Lucas made Emma dinner and listened to her talk about her day. After dinner, his phone rang. It was Victoria. How did it go? He asked. Victoria's voice was tired but steady. About as well as you'd expect. My mother cried. My father was angry. They felt betrayed. Lucas closed his eyes. I'm sorry. Victoria took a breath. I told them the truth about why I did it, about how suffocating their expectations were. And then I told them about you, the real you, a single father doing his best, a good man who got caught up in my mess, and that I care about you. What did they say? Lucas asked. Victoria's voice dropped. My father wants to meet with you. Tomorrow. Just the two of you. He wants to hear your side. He wants to decide for himself if you're someone who deserves to be in my life." Lucas felt his stomach drop. "Victoria, I don't think that's a good idea." She was quiet for a moment. "I know, but I need you to do it anyway. Please." Lucas looked at Emma, who was drawing at the kitchen table. "Okay, I'll meet him." The next day, Lucas sat across from Robert Hale in a coffee shop downtown. Robert ordered black coffee and waited until they were both settled. "My daughter told me what happened. All of it. The lie. The arrangement. The fact that you resigned from your job." Lucas nodded. "That's all true." Robert leaned forward. "She also told me that your feelings for her are real now. Is that true too?" Lucas met his gaze directly. "Yes, sir. It is. Why should I believe you?" Robert's eyes were hard. "You've been lying to me for months. You sat at my dinner table and lied to my face. Why should I trust anything you say now?" "You shouldn't," Lucas said simply. "I wouldn't if I were you. But I'm telling you anyway. I care about your daughter. I didn't plan to. But spending time with her, seeing who she really is under all the armor she wears, I couldn't help it. She's brilliant and driven and lonely. And when she's with my daughter, she's one of the best people I've ever known." Robert was quiet for a long moment. "What are your intentions?" Lucas answered honestly. "I don't have intentions. I just quit my job. I have a 6-year-old to support. I'm not in a position to be making promises about the future." "So you're looking for her money?" Lucas felt anger flash through him. "I've never asked Victoria for anything except a fair salary. I agreed to this because she was desperate, and I was stupid enough to think I could help. But I never used her. I never pretended to care about Emma to get closer to Victoria. My daughter is the most important thing in my world." Robert studied him. "Victoria said the same thing. She said you put Emma first always, that it's one of the things she admires most about you." Lucas nodded. "Emma comes first. That's not going to change, no matter what happens with Victoria." Robert drank his coffee, thinking. When he finally spoke, his voice had lost some of its edge. "I don't like that you lied to us. But what I dislike even more is the thought of Victoria ending up alone because the people around her only see her money." "She won't end up alone," Lucas said quietly. "Not if I have anything to say about it." Robert nodded slowly. "Then I suppose the question is whether you're strong enough to stay. Being with Victoria isn't easy. Can you handle that?" Lucas thought about the last few months. "I don't know, but I'd like to try." Robert stood up and extended his hand. Lucas stood too and shook it. "Don't make me regret this. And don't hurt my daughter. She's tougher than most people realize. But that doesn't mean she can't be broken." "I won't," Lucas promised. That night, Lucas drove to Victoria's penthouse apartment. She answered the door in jeans and a t-shirt, looking more relaxed than he had ever seen her. They stood in her doorway, the space between them charged with everything unsaid. "Your father and I talked," Lucas said. "I think he's willing to give me a chance." Victoria smiled, real and unguarded. "And are you willing to give me a chance?" Lucas stepped closer. "Are we really doing this? No more pretending? No more lies?" "No more lies," Victoria confirmed. "Just us. Whatever that looks like." Lucas closed the remaining distance and kissed her. It was tentative at first, but then Victoria's arms came around his neck, and it became something more. It became real. When they finally pulled apart, Victoria rested her forehead against his. "I got you a job interview at Thompson Industries, Executive Operations Manager. Better pay. No conflict of interest." Lucas laughed softly. "You can't stop taking care of things, can you?" "No," Victoria admitted. "It's who I am." "Is that going to be a problem?" Lucas thought about it. Only if you don't let me take care of you sometimes, too. Victoria kissed him again, softer this time. I think I can manage that. 3 months later, Lucas stood in the kitchen of Victoria's penthouse making pancakes, while Emma drew pictures at the table. Victoria emerged from her office, looking tired, but satisfied. She poured herself coffee and leaned against the counter, watching Lucas with a small smile. "What?" Lucas asked when he noticed her staring. Victoria shook her head. "Nothing. Just thinking about how this is better than I imagined." Emma looked up from her drawing. "What's better?" Victoria walked over and looked at what Emma was drawing. It was a picture of 3 people standing in front of a house. "This," Victoria said, pointing to the drawing. "All of this." Emma beamed. "That's you and Dad and me. We're a family." Lucas met Victoria's eyes over Emma's head. There was a question there, unspoken, but clear. Victoria smiled and nodded. "Yeah," Victoria said softly, running a hand through Emma's hair. "We are." It wasn't the life Lucas had planned. It wasn't the life Victoria had expected. But it was real. Built not on lies or pretense, but on the messy, complicated truth of 2 people who had found each other in the most unlikely way and decided to hold on. The billionaire and the single dad. The lie that became real. The family that shouldn't have worked but somehow did. And in the end, that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.